What we're looking at here is the book code from both chapters 9 and 10. And I'd like this opportunity to go over it with you folks because it covers my SQLI, but it also sort of mirrors the work that we've been doing in my separate PDO videos on YouTube. It's about the logic and the order of things. So what we have here is a membership system. We have a registration. We have a view users page and a change password page. So in chapter 12, what's going to happen is he's going to give you the ability to log in. But let's first look at our code. So to make this work, by the way, you have to have a connection script, which this is it. And here he has constants right here that are defined. Now, this is the actual connection. So if you look at this little @ symbol here, that's error suppression in PHP. And basically, he's connecting to the database or exiting, basically killing the script with this error message and an actual numeric message of what the connection is. He's also setting the encoding of the database itself to be UTF-8. Now, that's the connection script. Let's go take these one by one. And in our case, it's very similar to the CRUD methods, and that's what I'd really like to focus on. So here's register, and he's creating an array of errors right here. He's actually requiring the database connection, but basically inside here, he's taking the values of the form field entries and running a check to see if they're empty, and then adding to the array. So basically we have an array of errors. If they're empty, everything's okay, and if in that case he can make his insert statement. So one thing that's new to you folks is these are the variables that are going in. There's no bind values the way there is in PHP. He's using this method of encryption, which is SHA-2 with a 512, which is fine. It's more than adequate for our needs, but he's also adding error suppression here, meaning it will not output an error if there's a problem. So if it ran all right, he can say thank you. Otherwise, you could not be registered. Well, let's say you wanted to experiment with this and get it to work. Well, in that case, we'd have to go to our database, and this is the table structure. It's user ID, first name, last name, email, pass, and registration date. Now, as I go back here, you'll see he has a slew of scripts with him. But this one right here, I'd like to discuss one of the things that I'm going to kind of argue against, and that's using the server request method as post to check that. Now, this is not as optimal a way to detect variables. Basically, I could send any post data toward this just by taking this script, the form itself, and pointing it to that value. So let me give you an example on this. I'm going to create a new file. This is, we'll call it register.html, and I'll put it right on my desktop. Okay, so we'll call it register.html. And what we're going to do is point it to this page right here. Okay, so as you can see, you can pretend that I'm not even in the same server. Let's say I'm trying to carpet bomb his values. What I can do, and this is register.html, is go ahead, and I don't mind the if set here, it's fine, that's sticky forms, but I can do John Smith and then kdccore@gmail.com 1234 1234, whatever it's going to be, and I can hit register, and you see that I've registered. So to look at that again, I had a form from another direction, another place. It could be another server that's sending data to the script. I'd prefer to do something a little bit different, a little more secure, and let me show that to you. I'm going to go back to our Chapter 10 folder. This is htdocs, and we're going to go to register. And in this case, what I'd like to do is show you all the server vars that come in. Okay, so I'm going to do print r scalar_server, and when you get into WebD 166, if you take that PHP class, we'll get into these heavy, these server vars a little bit more heavy. So this is this value right here. And what I'm going to do is look for a referrer. And this is the referrer of where it came in. Okay, so if I go ahead and type James Addison, JAD@gmail.com, 1234, and 1234, what I can do is look and ensure that the value, the refer here, came from that script. So what I'd rather do is say, okay, if server request method is equal to post, I'd rather make sure the referrer is equal to this. And that way I know that the values came from that script. So we can try this again and hit this, and you'll see that the referrer is that. If it's not coming from that, if say I go to the HTML here and I go like this, nothing's going to get inserted because the referrer here is not an acceptable value. So that's one of the best things about PHP is you can actually control how secure everything is. Also, if you notice in the insert statement here, the variables are placed directly into the query, and if you use bind param or bind value, it would be a little bit better. So this basically puts the values into the database. That's the register page. Now if we look at the other pages, like delete users and edit users, and we watch them in action, you will see that, let's say I do view users here and I go delete. And if I click this, yes, then I'm passing that value to the user who's been deleted. Now, one of the benefits of this is if you compare it to mine, I use just the ID. He's using the post value with the ID. So one of the things I'd like to show you too is with a hidden field, inspect, what I can do is go inside that hidden field right here and go into my container. These are just things to watch out for when you're dealing with PHP. Now this would be password protected, and this is a big deal. But let's say I went in there and killed value 3. Well, if I go to my database right here, we have a value 3 James Addison, right? And I'm deleting John Smith. So what we're going to do is delete James Addison, and now that user's been deleted, and I meant to delete John Smith, and look what happens, James Addison is gone. So hidden fields do have some risk, but the way he did his script is very similar to what we've also been doing on the PDO side. So this is delete users where users equal user ID limit 1. And limit 1 is going to restrict the number of deletions that are there. It's a nice way to do it. But what you could do also instead of doing limit 1 is just to make sure that ID is what you think it is. For example, in these other scripts, he's testing to see if ID is numeric, and it is here, which is great. But you could say if the ID is not equal to empty, and that way only one ID would happen. Limit 1 is a good idea, though. So he's done some good work here. He's concatenating using functions, and I do like this is a nice version for you. Now, how could it improve? Well, when you register, the only thing that we know about you as a web programmer is your email address. So one way to add validation is to have this registration trigger off an email that goes to your email address that would allow you to click on that email address to actually activate your email. So what we might consider is having an extra field here. Now I'll go ahead and add it. We'll add one to registration date, and we'll call it active. And we can call this enumerative, since it's an opportunity to set this up. And we can have the default be 0 and then the active be equal to 1. And once the person clicks on that email and their own email address, that would activate and allow the user to be active. And then when they sign in, when they log in, they could easily check to see if that's active. Anyway, that is a little bit about how these registration systems work, but we'll get into that a little bit more on the PDO side as well. Again, we're dealing with request method equals post. This is the edit user, and the edit user here is very similar. Now you'll see this MySQLi real escape string, and that adds backslashes to quotes. PDO will also always do that for you in advance, so that's one of the benefits of using PDO. It takes care of these quoted attributes and the escapes, and you can actually Google that if you like, escapes with PDO, and it'll show you how what it does. So the prepare statement will take care of that for you, which is really nice. Anyway, so that is, I'm going to take one quick look at the edit functionality of this book. And there you see it works fine. So if this comes in, you can see that it edits right away. But one thing to notice is that the way I've done mine is one field, the way he's done his is many, and now we're to the point in the PDO side where we're putting into one script. So you're getting a lot of experience with this, but I do recommend that you install the book code and learn from it, because it is a help to see the different ways that people do things. But above all, you'll see the SQL queries are the same. Anyway, if there are any questions on that, please don't hesitate to reach out.